I decided today I just want to play, and so I'm just going to create without even a plan in mind. I kind of have a vision of what colors I want to use, but other than that, I'm just going to play. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to create my own backgrounds using stencils and stamps and different things. So that's why I'm calling it multi-layered background today. So what I am actually using today is items from the Crafty Stamp Co. Crafty Crew kit for September. So this kit is available August 1st through August 15th. It's a pre-order. After the 15th, it's no longer available. And so the items may come back in stock 6 months to a year from now, but there's no guarantee for that. So if you like anything that's in this kit, then you may want to get the kit while it's available. So I will link below to the kit. And you can also, I'll link below to my unboxing of the kit in case you want to see it. So what I'm using right now is the stencil that comes in the kit. And the kit comes with a stencil, 2 stamp sets, and a paper pad, and a little extra if you are a subscriber. So I'm using the stencil first, and this stencil has 5 images on it. So I'm using the little image that kind of looks like, to me, it makes me think of a lava lamp bubble. And the reason being because this month's, or September's, theme is like groovy, 70s groovy type of theme. So it does have lava lamps in it. So that's why I think this makes me think of a lava lamp. So what I've done is I've just brought in some yellow ink and I'm inking in the stencil. And then I came back with a little bit of rose ink and added that into the stencil as well. So part of it's yellow, part of it's rose, and then I'm just blending it together. So in my mind today, I was kind of thinking of like strawberry lemonade. And so that's kind of the colors that I'm wanting to use. Plus I'm going to bring in a little bit of turquoise. I love turquoise and I'm going to bring it in anytime I can. So you can see here when I pull it up, I went back over it. Once I added the yellow and the rose, I did go back over it with the yellow just to blend it all together. So now I'm just going to add this image, partial image, not the whole entire image, in different parts of my background. And I'm going to use the yellow and the rose to color it in. And so I think it's a lot of fun to create backgrounds like this. Now, if this is not your thing, be sure to check back next Friday because I will be using this kit, but I'll also be using the paper pad instead. I always tend to use the paper pad and the stamps, and I never get around to using the stencils. So this month, I wanted to start out by using the stencils first, and then we'll use the paper pad. So now for the background, what I'm doing is I didn't like all that stark white, so I'm just creating this as I go. I have no idea what I want to do. So I'm just adding a little bit of yellow to that white background because I feel like it's just too bright white. And so I'm not worrying about blending it out because I am going to add so many layers that it's really not going to matter in the end. I just want to get a little hint of the yellow in the background. And that yellow is the same yellow that I used to stencil in. It's just that I'm going a lot lighter and using a lot less ink so that it is lighter and is more in the background instead of blending in with what I've already stenciled. And so the inks that I'm using today are just older inks. I've been going through my stash lately and just pulling out older inks and things that I have. And so I'm not going to give the colors or the brand because these are older and they're no longer available. They're probably over 10 years old, but they've really lasted a long time. So for the flower here, I'm using like a rose color. But what I'm doing first is you can see I'm stamping it on the ink pad. Then I'm stamping off on a piece of scrap paper and then stamping onto my background because I wanted that rose not to be so dark with the large flowers. Now with the little flower, I'm coming back in with the rose color and just stamping it randomly around my background. Now when I do this, I do like to stamp off the edge. I feel like it just creates a better pattern to it if you stamp some of your stamps off the edge. And just like stencil, I stencil a little bit off the edge as well. And so I like the look of that. And then this little bubble stamp comes with the stamp set as well. And so I'm just adding a little bit of blue bubbles to the background, but you can't hardly see those. So I decided to bring in a darker turquoise for that as well. And so what I'm going to do for these is I'm going to create like a pattern where I stamp the bubbles. It's going to kind of be like in threes and like a little triangle pattern so that it just gives a little bit more to my background. And I'm just going to put that randomly around the background as well. So all of the stamps I'm using today come in the Crafty Crew kit and the stencil as well. So this little bubble stamp comes on the Groovy Meadow stamp set, and then the flowers that I used before comes on the Road Trippin' stamp set. So you get 2 different stamp sets in this kit. So if you're curious what's in the kit, just be sure to check out my unboxing video. You can see here I'm stamping off the edge again because I like how that looks. And I'm really liking the rose, yellow, and turquoise together. I think that's a really good look. So I'm coming back in now with the stencil, and these are kind of like stars. So I'm just going to use a little bit of white ink to stencil in the stars. I don't want them to pop up. I just want it to be faintly in the background that you kind of see it there, but it's not necessarily, you really have to look to see it. So on camera, you're probably not going to see it, but it really shows up more in person. But a lot of times on camera, it's hard to see the entire piece. Sometimes I think pieces look prettier in person than they do on camera. So sometimes it's hard to see that. So I'm just going to put randomly around my background 3 of the stars because I like to do things in 3s when I'm doing things like this. So I'm just going to add those around. And like I said, some you'll see more than others because of the placement as well. So you can see on the pink, that one pops out a little bit more. And then I'm going to come in with some white splatters. So what I'm using for my splatters is some white acrylic paint that I have really watered down to create the splatters. And then you can see on the side, I've already been playing around and getting warmed up before I created this background with you all. And so I had some of the rose ink that I had smushed onto a piece of clear plastic and then added some water. So I'm just going to add those, and that's the same rose that I stenciled in with. So I'm just going to add those splatters to the background. And I wanted those splatters to be kind of big and really showing up. And then I have up here in the on my piece of plastic in the upper left corner, I am smushing again some more blue ink, and then I'm just going to water it down. For my blue splatters though, I want it to be very fine or very small splatters. So I'm trying to not add as much to my brush and just make those little splatters. In person, you can see them really well. On camera, I'm not so sure that it's showing up, but they are there in the background. And maybe when I hold it up closer, you'll be able to see it later. So I'm just adding the splatters randomly around, but I like adding all these layers to the background. And now I'm just taking a look at it, trying to figure out, does it need anything else? I do like how it's looking, but I feel like it's missing something. So I'm just taking a look at it and trying to decide what I should do next to this piece. So I finally decided maybe it needs a border. So I'm going to bring in that yellow ink again, the same yellow that we stencil with, and I'm just going to lightly add a border around my cardstock. Now this piece I cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 so that it will fit the front of my card base. So I'm liking how this one is looking. It's a very light background, but I'm really liking how the yellow is finishing out the background piece and just kind of framing it out. I did think about coming in with the rose as well, but I didn't want it to be that bright. So I decided that the yellow would be a little bit fainter and maybe a little better for this background. And so for this one, I decided to add the turquoise in because I really am thinking that for this one, I'm going to use the van that I colored up already. So I stamped this out and colored it up days ago. And so that's why I'm bringing in a little bit of the turquoise, because I thought this van looked so cute in turquoise, but I wanted it to match this card front. Okay, so here is the ink that I had left over from when I first got started, and I decided I'm going to clean it up with a piece of paper as well. And so I really did not think that I was going to be making a card with this. So both of the backgrounds today, I'm going to create 2 cards with you using these backgrounds, but this one I had not planned to do that with. I was just kind of mopping up the ink and thinking I could save this for later. But once I saw how pretty the background is starting to look, I thought, you know what? I want to see if I can create a background with this as well. So I am using 110-pound white cardstock, but this was not created to be used with water. It's a very inexpensive cardstock. It is the cardstock that you can actually find at Walmart, but I can't remember the brand name. But I really like this cardstock. It's very sturdy. It isn't created for water, so it does get a little bit of a different effect when you add water to it, but I actually like the look that it gets. So once I have it dry, you can see it curls up, but most of the time when you're doing something like this, when you dry it, your paper will curl up. You can, put it under a book if that bothers you, but I'm just going to try to straighten it out the best I can, and when I glue it down, it will be flat. So once it's dry, I'm just going to start working with it, and I don't have any patience to wait for it to get flat. So I'm just going to use all of the same colors again. So I've decided I'm going to use the rose, the yellow, and the blue again. And I'm swapping between this distressed blue and then the other blue that I used previously for the dots that I was stamping, or the little bubbles that I was stamping. So I'm just going to come in, and I want to kind of stencil in this star, but I don't want it to be perfect. I don't want it to be just really popping out too much on the background. So I'm not worrying about getting it stenciled completely. I'm just trying to get a little bit of the image onto my background. I think this might be one of my favorite stars on this stencil, but the other stars are really neat too. I did use one of the other ones on the previous background that I'm not showing today, but maybe I will use that on a card later on. I'm also using my waffle flower base here. I can't remember what you call it, but it helps to hold your paper down and your stencil down so nothing is moving. And you really need that with these little stars because it will move around quite a bit. So I'm going to add about 3 stars because I always like to do things in odd numbers, and most of the time I do them in 3s. So I'm going to add those, and you can see that I am adding those, but I'm stenciling off the edge as well because I like how things are cut off like that when I'm creating a background. And when I look at it, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure this is coming together. I may have messed up. I'm not sure that I'm liking the blue stars with the pink, but I'm going to keep going because when you're creating a background like this, or any mixed media product, or even any type of crafting, sometimes when you're adding layers, sometimes when you add the first layer or the second layer, it's not looking like what you had in mind. But the more layers you add, especially for backgrounds like this, I feel like the more layers you add, the better the background gets. It's just, as long as you don't mix your colors up and they get muddy, it actually looks good to just keep adding layers. So I'm going to come in with that stencil again that looks like the lava lamp bubbles to me, and I'm just going to stencil in with the yellow. Now I kind of want to keep it very light, so you can see that I'm lightly stenciling and I'm not getting as much ink on my brush. And I'm just going to lightly stencil it. Now these blending brushes are inexpensive makeup brushes that I think I got from the Dollar Tree. So I like to use those. They've really held up well, but I don't use them a lot, so I'm not sure if you used them daily how it would be, but so far they've held up pretty well for me, and they're very inexpensive. So I'm just taking and using those to blend in with my yellow. And you saw earlier, I just used my regular blending tool to blend the rose because I wanted the rose to be a little darker. So you can see here, I'm just going to do this stencil in 3s as well around my card. And I'm liking, you're not getting that full effect of the stencil, but I'm liking the image in the background that it is creating. And it's getting a little better. So now I'm going to bring in the mushroom. I absolutely love mushroom stamps, and this one comes with a mushroom stamp. So at first I thought I would use the rose to stamp the mushroom in the background, but I changed my mind, and I'm cleaning the stamp off, and I'm going to go with the yellow because I think that's going to give a better effect for this background and more of the look that I'm going for. So I'm just going to stamp the yellow in the background, and I like how the yellow looks with the pink and the blues, and so I'm just going to randomly stamp this mushroom around. And really, I have no rhyme or reason of how I stamp this. I just stamp them. When I create a background, I just start stamping and do whatever looks good to my eye. So I knew I wanted quite a few little mushrooms on here, so I'm just stamping them around. And of course, I'm going to stamp some off the edge as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with one of the flowers from the stamp set as well. And like I said, all of the stamps that I'm using today came from the Crafty Crew kit. So this is one of the small flowers, and I'm going to stamp it in the rose color so that, I'm keeping all those colors. So I'm just choosing 3 colors to use today and just really creating with those 3 colors. That way everything kind of blends together in the end. And so I love this little flower stamp. I'm going to put quite a few of these flowers onto the background because I think it looks really good with the smushing that we did. I love ink smushing, so I really like the look of that. So now I'm just going to add one of the sentiments in the background. So I'm just going to stamp it randomly around my background, but I'm going to stamp it in the yellow, and I'm going to keep it so that it's in the background and not so much in your face. So what I'm going to do though is I want to keep it straight as much as possible. So sometimes when I create a background, I'll twist my stamp sideways and crooked in different ways. But for this wording, I'm just going to stamp it around, trying to keep it as straight as possible. And I'm going to have about 3 full stamps of wording. And then what I want to do is I want to stamp it off the edge again. Even though it's wording and you can't see the whole word, I still want to have it stamped off just to create that background pattern. Keep in mind, this is going to be a background, so we're going to add images to the top of this and sentiments and different things. So you're not going to see the whole background. And like if you don't, like you have a spot that's not filled in enough, like you didn't put enough mushrooms or enough flowers, when you get through putting your card together, if you see a spot that just looks too empty, you can always come back and stamp a mushroom or stamp a flower or whatever you want to add. So I just now smushed the yellow ink down on my clear plastic, added a little bit of water, and now I'm adding the yellow splashes to the background of this card. And then I want to bring in, and I want to do the same thing. I'm just going to bring in and smush a little bit more of my rose ink and add some water to it and add splashes. And I'm also going to be adding the white splashes to the background as well. I love, like I said, I love ink smushing, but I love adding splashes as well. Splashes and ink smushing are like one of my most favorite techniques to do. So I really think that the splashes kind of does something for the background. It really makes it all come together. So I'm just going to add this rose now. I'm just adding a little water to it. And we cleaned this plastic off, and now we've dirtied it up again. But I thought that I was just going to clean this up and I was done, and I was just going to create the one card. But once I got started on this background, I'm really liking how it looks. I'm liking how it's coming together. So I think it's going to make a really cute card. So I'm just lightly splashing around. This time I'm keeping all my splashes small. I didn't want a lot of big splashes on this one. And I'm just going back and forth until I get it the way I like it. So I'll add a little bit of rose and a little bit of white and yellow splashes until I get it the way I like it. Now I did decide I want to come back with these little bubbles on it as well. We added these bubbles to the background of the previous card. So now I'm coming in. Now these are going to be very faint. I'm not even sure that you can see them on camera, but in person you can see them, but they're very faint and they're in the background. And that's what I was going for. I didn't want them to be popping up too much. It's just adding more texture and more design to the background and more to catch your eye when you are looking at this card. Once I have them like I like it, then I'm going to go ahead and start creating cards. So we have our 2 backgrounds here that we're going to create cards with today. And I think for this first one, I'm just going to use the van on it. And so I want to go ahead and get started putting this one together. And I have this little dog here also. So the stamp set comes with the van, and the stamp set comes with the little animals that you can put in the windows. And so I decided to use this little dog. I thought he was absolutely adorable and so happy looking. I thought he would look cute on this, but you could add several of the animals sticking out the windows if you wanted to, because it comes with 4 different animals. It comes with 2 dogs and 2 cats. I'm also going to add a sentiment on this one, and so I've cut out a banner in white, and I'm going to stamp it with the black ink that says Stay Groovy. So I think that's really cute. This is a cute font that they created for this stamp set as well. Now I want to lay everything out and kind of see how it looks together, because I'm not really sure about having a white banner. So I want to kind of look and see what I think. So I think it's just a little bit too stark white for this type of card. I think it would have been fine, but it's not what I was going for. So I'm just going to ink it in a little bit with some of my ink to see if that helps it out and helps it to kind of blend in and look right with this card. And I'm also going to come in and I'm going to stamp some of those little flowers again in the rose color. Just stamp 2 or 3 of them, I think 3, and just stamp 3 of them over the wording and onto the banner just to add a little bit more to this banner as well. Since the background is so busy, I kind of want to do the same thing with my little sentiment. So I'm just adding 3 of the flowers there. And I'm going to cut off that white end, so that's why I'm not working on it, because I'm going to cut this off and have it against the edge of my card. But when I look at it, those blues are not matching. So that blue is not actually matching what I'm having in mind. And you'll see in a moment when I bring the van in, it's not really the same color as the van, and I kind of wanted that banner and van to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out the marker that I used to color in the van, and then I'm going to color in my banner with that marker. And that way they will match exactly, and we won't, it won't be distracting to the eye. It'll all kind of flow together. So once I have the banner like I like it, I'm going to glue this card together. And for this card, normally my cards, I cut my card front a little smaller so that it has a frame around it. This time I decided to just keep it the same size as my card base and not frame it out. And so I think that looks really good. Since I went ahead and inked around the edges, I think that's enough of the frame. And so then I'm just going to add my little dog to my van, and then I'll add all of this to the card front. And I think that it came together really nice. I really love how this turned out. I had so much fun creating these backgrounds, and these cards I thought looked really cool. And so I think it goes along with this month's little groovy theme. So that is our first card. So now let's get started on the second card and our second background. So for this one, I'm going to use the Groovy Meadow. I'm just going to stamp her out. And I want to make sure though, before I go to stamp her, that she does fit okay on the front. And I think she does look good on the front there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp her out. I'll color her in with alcohol markers, and I'm going to cut her out. So what I chose to do was to use the colors that's in the card background. So I've colored her in with the pinks and the blues, and even with her hair, I created a golden blonde hair to kind of go with the background. I kind of wanted it to all, I want her to pop on the front, but I also want it to all match. So when I am fussy cutting her out, I decided I didn't want to use any white edges. So because I decided to do that, her hair has little curls and things. So she did get a bit of a haircut in some spots because it was just so small that I didn't feel like it was necessary to cut that out. So I did give her a slight haircut, but she still looks really cute. And I thought it would glue down better because some of those little thin pieces I was afraid I couldn't get glue on. So she, I think she turned out absolutely adorable. She's a very cute stamp. These are really cute stamps from Crafty Stamp Co. They have the little meadow in all kinds of themes. She's a mermaid, or she's a chef, or she's all kinds of different little things. And I really think that's cute. And so I think this one's really cute as well. So I think she'll look good on the front there, but it's kind of plain. It needs something else. So I'm going to come in with the larger flower stamp, and I'm going to stamp it in the Memento Black. And then I'm going to color it in with my alcohol markers with the blue and pink. And then I'm going to just fussy cut it out right up against the edge, just like I did with the little meadow. I'm going to cut the flowers out as well. So for this one as well, I'm not going to add another layer behind it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with that yellow ink, and I'm going to ink around the edges. Now, because we did do that pink rose smushing, ink smushing, this yellow is going to kind of get a little oranger look to it. Is oranger really a word? Maybe I should have said a more orange look to it when I do this, because it's going to blend with that pink a little bit, which makes more of an orange. And I'm really liking how that's looking. So what I'm going to do also is sometimes when I ink a background like this around the edge, I like to come in on the corners and add a little bit more ink to the corners than the edges. And so that's what I did with this one, to kind of frame it out a little bit more, because I was really liking how it was looking. So I'm just going to add that to my card front, and then we will start adding all of the pieces, the flowers and the girl. But the more I look at the flowers, I realize that they're just too plain. I love the pink and blue that I colored them in, but I feel like they need something a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some white splashes, and I'm going to add those to these flowers. And I was like, well, if I mess up, these flowers were easy to color, easy to cut out, so it won't be that big a deal. But I absolutely love how they look once I added the white splashes. So I think that was the right choice for these. I think it really made them go along with the background, but also just added a little bit of something to them. So now I'm just going to take and glue all of this to my card. First, I want to go ahead and dry the ink splashes on the flowers so that when I glue them down, I don't mess up the ink and smear it. Or not ink, excuse me. This is still the acrylic paint that I've added water to. I just keep calling it ink, but it is the acrylic paint. So once I have those dry, I'm just going to layer everything up on my card. So what I like to do is just lay it all out first and make sure that I like the placement of everything. And then once I have everything placed like I like it, then I'm going to glue everything down. And I really think it looks good to tuck some of these flowers in behind the little meadow girl. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to glue it all down. So once I had everything glued down, I was going to use that sentiment in the bottom right corner as my sentiment that we stamped on the background, but I felt like it wasn't enough. So I came in with another banner. I just stamped that with the little blue bubbles. I put "You Are My Sunshine" with the rose that's in the background, and then I just inked it a little bit with the yellow. And what I did was I was lighter in the center and more on the edges. And so here is the first card we created. I really love how this card turned out. And I love how the second one turned out as well. I think what I love about them is I think they're very pretty, but for me, I think it brings me happiness of how much fun it was to create these backgrounds. So I hope today's video has inspired you to create something, because it was a lot of fun to do this. And I will be back next Friday using this paper pack. So if creating backgrounds is not your thing, be sure to check back next Friday, because I will be back using that paper pack to create a few more cards or project. I haven't really decided what I'm creating yet, but I will be back with this kit then. Well, I really appreciate you watching. I hope that you will like and subscribe and comment below. Let me know what you're creating this week or what you think about this project. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.